Welcome to, or welcome back to, the Agatha May Detective Agency. I'm Agatha May, and in this video, I'll be answering questions and addressing comments that you all have left for me. Thank you again so much for watching and for all of the comments. They just melt my little black heart. Now, with some of these usernames, I'm not going to try to pronounce the whole username, so they'll be abbreviated somewhat. Let's start with Flat Earth Effect asked, what kind of sound equipment do you use? Well, I don't want to be all braggy and act like I'm trying to be better than anyone else, but I use a Blue Brand Snowball Ice Mic that I bought from the thrift store for $5. I use Adobe Audition to record and edit the sound. Now, most of the editing is just cutting out my many mess-ups and cleaning up mouth sounds, which give me the ick even when they're my own. Joan of Arc, which is a great username, asked, which angel were you when you played Charlie's Angels? Well, for some unknown reason, I was Jill, and I honestly do not know why, because I look much more like Bosley than I do Farrah Fawcett. Nicole asked if I would be interested in investigating the Sebastian Rogers disappearance, and I haven't looked into it much, but I definitely will. And Bascal, or Bascal, depending on if she likes music or fishing, asked, are you able to find out what assets that Solid Rock Church owns, such as vehicles and homes that belong to other people? I have been curious and know others are too. Solid Rock Ministries owns their current buildings and land valued at $1.9 million. They have the new land that they purchased, which is actually two separate parcels, and together they are worth $3.4 million. JP's house was just transferred to the church in December of last year, and it is valued at $241,000. The vehicles the church owns are a 2007 Chevy cargo van, a 2018 Chevy Silverado 1500, a 2011 Toyota, which I don't know what the model is. The code on the tax receipt is a BF3K, a 2011 Honda CR-V or XL, a 2019 Ford F-150, a 2011 Chrysler 300, a 2000 Jeep Wrangler, and a 1997 Lexus LS that was just given to the church by Susie. JP only has the DeLorean in his name. So my question is, who is driving these vehicles? Now, JP has one of the trucks and the DeLorean at his house. Are the rest of these vehicles sitting in the church parking lot? Is there someone that lives in Myrtle Beach that can drive by in the middle of the week maybe to see how many vehicles are there? Now, his family doesn't seem to be using them. Reggie has a car in Cathedral Baptist Church's name. His sister's car is in her husband's name, and Trisha has a car in her own name. So who's driving all of these vehicles? User XH wrote, when did the church switch its Love God, Love People to the commands and four banners in the sanctuary? I could only find videos that go back to 2015, and the four banners are in the church then. It seems like they've used both Love God, Love People and the banners for a while. Valerie asked, should her body have had many bug bites? Well, I am not anywhere close to being any kind of an expert, but I will give my very amateur opinion. Micah supposedly made the call at 2:54, and the kayaker found her body at 4:23, so she wasn't in the water for very long. Now, mosquitoes are attracted to CO2 in our breath, and carbon dioxide that occurs during decomposition, which would not have occurred the short amount of time she was in the water. So I doubt she would have had mosquito bites. And biting midges are also common in swampy areas, watery areas, but they are also attracted to carbon dioxide. Kendra asked, do you think that Micah could have been planning to shoot JP and he got wind about it early enough to have a counter plan? I don't think Micah would have shot anyone unless it was to protect herself in the moment. I think the gun that she purchased was for protection. Brenda asked if I can find out if any of the involved are Masons. As far as I can tell, Wayne Miller's father, Reg Kinley Miller, was a Mason, but I haven't seen anything that shows that anyone else is. So Marilyn wrote about the police officer that was a member at Solid Rock and asked, was she the police officer who helped to get the felony expunged from JP's record so he could buy guns and also had a police badge made for him that said pastor? I don't know who helped him get his clergyman badge, and I haven't heard or seen anything about anyone speaking up for him to get his pardon. I know he is definitely not a chaplain for any of the law enforcement, as that would mean that he would actually have to show empathy to people and actually have to work. So about him getting a gun, according to the paperwork that Micah's family has filed, Micah had guns at JP's house that he would not give her. So if she had them before his pardon in the house, he was in violation of the law that prevents felons from possessing guns. The guns do not have to be in the felon's name. They just have to be in their residence. And from what I understand, the pardon can be reversed. And if that happens, I will be bathing in the Schadenfreude under the full moon and sipping moonshine. Okay, only part of that is true. I don't drink moonshine. Schaefer Aaron wrote, no one seems to be talking about Mark Kaufman, JP's BFF and business partner. And Carol asked, Agatha, have you heard about the old man at Solid Rock that sprayed fake Jesus in the face with water? So this case has been bizarre. We all know it's been bizarre. But now we're at the point where we're having to say things like, fake Jesus got sprayed in the face with water. So I am working on a video about Mark Kaufman, Robert the Water Boy, Nicholas Genet, and Tom Winslow. So I asked for names of remaining congregants today in a Justice for Micah Facebook group, and I did not word it well enough. So now some people are scared that I'm going to send a mob to congregants' houses with pitchforks, which is ridiculous. I think just 2 or 3 people showing up would suffice. Plus, it would cut down on the cost of pitchforks. Actually, I just want to see if any of the remaining congregants need their closet aired out a bit. And even though I edited my comment in the group to show that I'm not out for blood unless it's specifically delicious, it's not good enough for some of them. For those who keep saying that Micah wanted to protect the people in the church and they shouldn't be called out, can I just remind you that Micah didn't know what some of them had done and were doing. I don't know if Micah would have wanted anyone to talk badly about Charles Randall, but no one seems to have a problem with the video I made about him. And that's because I brought things to light that Micah more than likely didn't know about him. So what is the threshold that determines when someone should be called out on their actions? IW9338 wrote, I saw on another channel that JP pulled a phone from his left pocket and started to text, then paused and pulled a phone from his, and I think they meant right pocket. So I have seen posts about him having 2 phones, but I have had 2 phones before, simply because one was a work phone and one was a personal phone. Now, I'm not sure if he has a church phone and a personal phone, or if he needs one phone for John Paul and one phone for Spider-Man. It's also a possibility that he uses a phone that he thinks he can be anonymous with, but I'm going to bet the FBI is paying extra attention to all of his phone use. Carolina says, Grand Strand Christian Academy, aka Cathedral Bible College, the college building, was in the Air Force Base bowling alley right next door to the Solid Rock Church. The bowling alley equipment was still in place and the quote-unquote rooms were divided by tarps. I attended. It was weird. So that is past weird and is just headed straight off a cliff into bizarre land. But it sounds so typical of Reggie, trying to act like he has something big, like a big church and a school, And in reality, it's a building with tarp walls that's held together with duct tape and desperation. Way to go, Reggie. Deja Vu once, asking about Charles Randall, asked, is Vanita his wife or his daughter? So Vanita is his daughter, and Doretha is his wife, who he has never, ever, ever abused, even once in any kind of way. In reference to one of the videos about Reggie, JC_DK asked, were the quotes where Reggie explains himself exact quotes? I noticed that it's often in bullet points and he's often missing the pronoun I. Yes, those were his exact quotes, and they were very painful to read. So I think Reggie probably thinks so much of himself that he thinks the I is just always implied. In reference to Troy, look at my goatee, Taylor, Jinxie Winky asked, how did this creeper go from life without parole to paroled, released, registered as offender at a business? It was a technicality. I'd like to know why he hasn't been charged again, though. I've heard from a reliable source that there is something odd going on with the Georgetown Sheriff's Department, and they don't seem to want to have anything to do with Troy Taylor. Someone is working on it, so we will see where it goes. Linda asked, who is the doctor who diagnosed her, meaning Micah, with all of these mental illnesses? Well, I think his name is John Paul Miller. I have yet to see anyone produce actual proof of any diagnosis. Now, I've heard that on the day he allegedly put razor blades in her tires, it was because she was on her way to file papers at the courthouse with the doctor's report that she did not have all of the diagnoses that John Paul was saying she did. I have not seen these actual papers, though, so that is rumor. Lily That Girl wrote, I want to know which chair was in and if it could be remote controlled. It seems funds were raised for 2 different chairs. So he was gifted a track fab in 2020, and I'm assuming that's the one he still used. There was mention that he got that one because his previous beach wheelchair would leave sores. Both models of the electric track fabs that are offered today have an optional attendant control. So yes, they could be remote controlled. In reference to Trisha Ross, Sweet Tea says, so she was or wasn't born in Spain? Well, she was born in Spain, but isn't Spanish. Her father was in the army and was stationed there and had his family living there when Trisha was born. She is technically American, but she will forever remain that cuckoo little cocktail of a Spanish senorita named Trisha Rita in our hearts. Tammy wrote about Trisha Ross. I have said that she is sleeping with JP from the start of this. Just by the way she smiles at him, she's in love with him. Well, Tammy, I don't know what I have done to offend you, to cause you to make me want to think about that scenario, but whatever it was, I promise I will never do it again. Also in reference to Trisha, Paul wrote, was she attending Robert Troy Taylor's church while she was in Murrells Inlet? That is a good question, but her family might know if she ever attended Low Country Community Church. And another about Trisha, Misty wrote, Trisha Ross has done prison time. She had a different name. JLR did a video about it. Her last name at the time of her arrest was actually Island Diley. It was a hyphenation of her maiden and married name, but the court records just have it as Island. And she never went to prison. She was given a suspended prison sentence of 2 years, which just means that if she would have messed up her probation, she could have gone to prison for those 2 years. Always Ready 4017 wrote, what you guys are missing is before the breakup, all 3, meaning Trisha Ross, Micah, and JP, were very tight and hung out together. This was the inner circle of both parties, and she can tell some stuff that will have you looking different at JP's wife. Look at the bigger picture. She was good with everything until a few months ago. The first lady of the church had got there by leaving her hubby and hooking up with JP because she knew he had some money and in the meantime splitting his family up. She says in her divorce affidavit that they were picking up prostitutes together, not just him, but together. No wife that isn't down with that would stay after the first one. Not to mention, she thought she was pregnant by a male sex worker. She is beautiful, and if she wasn't, we all wouldn't even pay attention. But she is just as guilty as he was. Remember our parents telling us about birds of a feather? It's still true. You hang with people that are similar to you, or you all have the same interest in life. Well, Trisha, JP, and Micah were never tight. They didn't hang out. There is no way that John Paul would ever have any kind of social life with Trisha. He only uses her for what he needs from her. What you're missing is that Micah was groomed by JP since the time she was 14 years old. And she looked up to him and unfortunately held on to that childlike awe even as an adult. He had some kind of power over her. It wasn't money, it wasn't looks, it was a narcissist's ability to lure her in because he knew she was vulnerable. A predator will always go for the weakest prey. Now, Micah's weakness in this case was nothing of her doing, it was her age. So how about we go ahead and put some blame on the pastor of the church that was 14 years older than her? And if John Paul didn't want his marriage to break up, he should have kept his pants zipped. In an abusive situation, you will do anything to appease the abuser, even things that you don't want to do. It might seem like an easy solution to just not do what JP wanted and leave, but that's not how it works. And Micah's looks have absolutely nothing to do with why I got involved in this case. In fact, she didn't have anything to do with my initial interest. So my interest stemmed from John Paul's announcement of her death. All of the red flag hairs stood up on the back of my neck, and I knew something wasn't right. And as someone who's a survivor of childhood trauma, I pay close attention to those warnings. So I wouldn't care if Micah was physically so ugly she could knock a dog off a gut wagon. She'd still be worth my time, and she'd still be more beautiful than John Paul Miller ever hoped to be. So, with that out of the way, the last question is a little more lighthearted. I have one question. Can you find any pictures or videos of JP in a full body cast? That was his life, or why he had a drug-induced attack on his lawn. I'm sure by now we have all seen the video of John Paul laid out on the lawn, squealing, me, 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 me. He has recently come out with a video to explain his episode, and his explanation was that he had taken too many pain pills, and that he had just gotten out of a body cast. It's odd that while he was under the influence of these pain pills, he did manage to drive to Allison's house, park his truck, open the door, and then get on the grass. So is there a video or pictures of him in a full body cast? No. And that's because they don't exist. However, we do have the court transcript from he and Allison's divorce in 2015. So the judge states, okay, I see you're in a wheelchair. You apparently have some bandages on your right foot. And JP says, I fell out of a tree about 10 days ago, yeah. Out of a tree? Yes, sir. Do you have any broken bones? Yes, sir. 5 in my foot and 2 in my wrist, and my knees messed up. What are your prospects for recovery? I'm hoping about 2 months. I'll be able to walk by Christmas again. Okay, what were you doing up in a tree? Everybody asks me that, if you don't mind me asking. I have to be honest with you, I guess. Is that right? It was in hopes for reconciliation sex. Oh, okay, that's okay. I don't need to hear that. Do your injuries prevent you from being able to still work? I'm not working right, that's true, but they're still paying me right now. Oh my goodness, John Paul. John Paul cannot tell the truth. He lies just to hear his own voice. So he was not in a body cast. And yes, JP, when you go to court, you have to tell the truth. And in fact, that should be the rule for the rest of your life, you doink. So a couple of people have mentioned that I was being harsh with my videos I made about Susie Skinner and Trisha Ross. that I was too snarky and sarcastic. I absolutely tore Reggie Miller a new one, and no one minded. No one said anything about the Charles Randall video or the Troy Taylor video, so why should I take it easier on the women? When you lie down with dogs, expect to get some fleas. And in this case, John Paul is the dog and the fleas are my sassy comments. I am working on my next video, but I am also going out of town for a few days, so I'm not sure when I'll have it posted. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay safe and be happy.